Welcome to the complete animation of Felicity Fox from Wes Anderson's masterpiece stop-motion animated movie, Fantastic Mr. Fox. This movie is one of the movies that I consider to be too good for this world, where every time I watch it, I just throw my hands up and shout to no one in particular, how? How did a movie this good end up gracing the world? Like, how did this movie even come around? Like, good movies, they're rare and far between. But this movie is basically perfect. And so let's just start with the obvious. This movie is absolutely gorgeous. Holy cow. Just the detail in everywhere and just how good it looks. Fantastic Mr. Fox is one of the most visually accomplished movies ever made. And I do not say that lightly. Like, this movie, everything about it just works. Even the bits that don't seem like they work, they do. Like, from having the really good close-ups, like where the character's face completely fills the entire frame, all the way to scenes where it's a lot of characters at once and then they intentionally use smaller puppets. Like, everything about this movie is intentional. And the fact that it is all stop motion is even more impressive. Stop motion is one of the most time-consuming, laborious mediums to create visual art with. It is absolutely a labor of love. Like, you can tell that the animators who stood in front of these little miniatures and moved them frame by frame for months on end, you can tell that they were having the time of their lives working on this. This movie just has so much passion behind the visuals, and the visuals are only a part of it. Like, the voice acting, sure, like, yeah, all-star cast and whatever, George Clooney, Meryl Streep, great stuff. They even got Bill Murray, but the way that they were written, that's something entirely special on its own. Like, if you've ever read Fantastic Mr. Fox by Roald Dahl, it is a very simple story. It's like, there's the Roald Dahl books that everybody's familiar with, like Matilda or the BFG or the Witches. Those books they're longer. And then they're like intended for, a slightly older audience, and they got some pretty messed up stuff in it. Like The Witches, the main character gets turned into a mouse, and you're like, oh, so this story is going to be about how he stops being a mouse, while they also defeat the bad guys. They do defeat the bad guys, but no, he's a mouse. Like, just stuck that way for the rest of his life. He's a mouse. And this movie was able to take the Roald Dahl book of Fantastic Mr. Fox and expand it in ways that really fit in with a bunch of what other things that Roald Dahl did, but at the same time, it's really just an excuse for Wes Anderson to tell his own story. And it's so funny. Like, this movie is full of some real, genuine wit and clever writing. It's like, I have a brother, he is not into animation, especially not the way I am. Like for years he would tease me about, you are a grown man and you are into these cartoons and things. Grow up. But even he likes Fantastic Mr. Fox. We have quotes that we quote each other from Fantastic Mr. Fox. I think one of our favorites is, you're supposed to be my lab partner. I am your lab partner. No, you're not. You're disloyal. It's like, this is one of the few movies that we really bond over. And it, it's really kind of sad that I tried showing this to my parents, and my mom came away from this movie saying she did not like this movie because she really didn't like how Mr. Fox lied to his wife and went back to, his old stealing ways. It's like, apparently the whole, this guy's going through a midlife crisis and feels like he has to prove prove himself to himself and everyone around him. Like that story did not jive with my mom, and it's like, I guess that's a fair point. Like, husbands should, not go behind their family's back and basically engage in crime. But I just really enjoy this movie. I like basically everything about this movie. I like every character. Every character in this movie is awesome. Even if it's like, what is he, Phil, the mole? He gets like 2 or 3 lines the entire movie, but he just sticks out because it's just so good. And I think that one of the things that really sticks out to me about this movie is the whole tone that it has. This movie is obsessed with the color orange. You get orange because of it seeming to be perpetually fall, autumn, the entire time. Like, beginning a movie to end a movie, it's all just autumn. And I love fall. It is one of my favorite seasons, where the colors start to change and the weather starts to cool down just a little bit after a hot summer. I love autumn, and this movie is basically autumn incarnate. It's not Thanksgiving, it's not Halloween, it is autumn, fall. Why is there autumn and fall that are 2 words that describe the exact same season? I really just, and the whole world building of this movie, it is intentionally vague. You get an intentional sort of mishmash of different eras of technology and architecture and things. I like to compare that to sort of what The Incredibles did, where it's like, with The Incredibles, there are some bits where it's like, oh, this is like the 50s or 60s almost. But then there are some bits where it's like, well, this is clearly modern. And then there's some bits where it's like, wow, that's like way 80s or 90s. And the movie never really specifically addresses it. It just is. And Fantastic Mr. Fox also does that. It has this mishmash of different eras of technology and things that really sells the idea that this movie is fantastic, like a fantasy in more ways than just talking animals. Like, it is this world that is devoid of any real attachments to a time and place in the real world. And I think that one of the things that does is it makes this movie timeless on its own. Like, this movie could have come out, like, this movie could magically be transported back into the 80s, come out in theaters back then, and nobody would really bat an eye at it in terms of, like, the things that it has. Like, the computer equipment that it has, it's all pretty ancient, but it doesn't really even have computers. It's all about radios and a few TVs. But this movie has basically its own time period and its own, it's hard to explain. But yeah, let's talk about the focus of this video, Felicity Fox. A bunch of the time people just call her Mrs. Fox, which, fair enough. The main character, he is literally just Fox, Foxy, Mr. Fox. It's kind of weird that he doesn't have a name. And Felicity is the perfect foil to him. He is constantly thinking about what he could be and how he wants more than what he has, but she is content. He is impulsive and reckless. She is like definitely ready to keep with the status quo and get things done the way they should be. It She is the perfect foil to him, and I think that the line later on in the movie where Mr. Fox is like, I gotta do this, I gotta basically go on a suicide mission in order to save everybody. And she says, I love you, but I shouldn't have married you. It's like, oh, wow. It's like, what a way to say something to someone where it's like, you are the love of my life, but you are so much trouble that it was a mistake for me to hitch myself to you. But even though she said that, like, she is nothing but faithful to him the entire way. Like her saying that, it hurts more because she's still just her for the rest of the movie. It's really poignant. And this scene right here, where you get a really good look at her face coming up, where it's like her face is the entire thing. I wonder how many different sizes of models they had making this movie. Because for this bit right here, where her face covers the entire screen, I'm pretty sure that's a much bigger model, because I don't know if the normal size model that they did for most of it would be able to have the actuation that you need. And that's one of the things that really impresses me about this movie. If you look at a movie like Nightmare Before Christmas or Kubo and the Two Strings, those are some of the other like absolutely incredible stop motion animated movies. They basically had different faces or different heads that they had prepared separately that they used for doing facial expressions and for doing lip sync. So it's like, while they were doing Nightmare Before Christmas, they literally had an entire collection of different heads for Jack, so that when they needed to make him talk, they would just swap out the head. So it'd be like, here is him being angry and then making all of these phonemes. And like, I think that they must have just really worked on having just the sheer number of those. And in Kubo and the Two Strings, they did it similar, but instead of handcrafting each of the heads, they all just 3D printed them all. And so that works really well. You get really good expressive faces and lip sync in Kubo and the Two Strings and in Night Before Christmas. But you can't do that in Fantastic Mr. Fox. You have to actually move the mouths and the eyes every single time. And I just think that is so impressive. Wes Anderson directed one other stop motion animated movie, and that was Isle of Dogs. And I think that on a pure technical level, Isle of Dogs is like the superior movie. Isle of Dogs, they make the animals move and talk at a whole new level compared to Fantastic Mr. Fox. But I'd say that overall, Fantastic Mr. Fox is still wonderfully animated and is the better movie. Isle of Dogs, I still don't think I get it. It's like, I enjoyed the movie. I liked it from the very first time I saw it. But even from then, there's just feeling that I have that I don't get Isle of Dogs. I don't get it. Which is alright, because like I've always said, when it comes to movies for me, especially animated movies, visuals first. And Isle of Dogs is a visual feast. But then there's, the whole thing where Wes Anderson said the entire reason he wanted to make Fantastic Mr. Fox was because of the scene where Fox is riding away on a motorcycle and he sees a wolf and they have a little conversation. Not really, but like everybody's like, oh yeah, that is the reason he made the movie. And everybody's also like, I don't really get it. It's like, I also don't really get that scene, but I do get the rest of the movie. The rest of Fantastic Mr. Fox just resonates with me on a deep, personal level. It is a movie that I will always consider to be an all-time classic. It's like, I have a goal of watching every animated movie ever, and eventually, once I get that goal, there will be a ton of movies. There might even be a majority of movies that I'll probably never watch again. I'll be like, yes, I saw that movie, I gave it a fair shake. It might even be a pretty good movie, but there's a good chance that there's a ton of them that I will never sit down and watch again. But Fantastic Mr. Fox is one of the movies that years down the line, when I am in my 50s, a grumpy old man or whatever, I will still find time to come and watch this movie because I like it that much. One of the things that I also like about this movie is just its soundtrack. There's so many licensed songs that just fit. Like this final song of, I can't even remember what it's called right now, but it's a song that I'd never heard of before, but I like it. So, I wholeheartedly recommend Fantastic Mr. Fox. It's not for everybody, like my mom, she didn't think too much of it, but I recommend it. Thank you for watching.